Get ready to level up your single-player game library because today we're talking about 50 must-play games that you absolutely need to experience at least once. So let's get into it. Let's start with A Plague Tale: Innocence. This game doesn't need to throw non-stop action at you to be gripping. It's about a girl named Amicia and her little brother Hugo trying to survive in a world torn apart by war and plague. It's got a grounded story with emotional weight, and the gameplay is more about stealth and puzzle solving than combat. The way the world is designed, dark, eerie, and full of detail, really pulls you in. It's the kind of game that builds atmosphere slowly and hits harder because of it. If you like stories where the characters feel real and the journey is more personal than explosive, this one's worth your time. Alan Wake 2 leans hard into psychological horror, but not in a way that feels cheap or overly jump-scary. It's more about mystery and mood. You switch between two characters, and the story jumps between timelines, giving it a kind of what is really going on vibe throughout. Combat is simple but effective, especially when light becomes your main weapon against the darkness. If you're into games that feel like you're playing through a tense, supernatural thriller novel, this one nails that tone without going overboard. It's slow burn, but totally engrossing. Even if you're not into pirates, Black Flag does such a solid job of blending naval exploration with the usual AC stealth and action. Sailing the Caribbean, managing your ship, and taking down forts feels different from other games in the series in a good way. The main story is decent, but it's the open world stuff. Treasure hunting, sea shanties, diving for loot, that really makes it memorable. It's one of those titles where you might start just to check it out and then lose hours to upgrading your ship or chasing whales. It's low-pressure fun mixed with sneaky missions and sword fights. This one's got a really weird but cool vibe. Think BioShock, but in an alternate universe Soviet Union. The environments are super detailed and full of strange tech, robots, and unsettling design. It doesn't always explain itself clearly, which adds to the bizarre charm. The combat feels chunky and chaotic, with a mix of guns and powers that you can upgrade in some pretty unique ways. It's definitely not a game for everyone, but if you like exploring strange worlds and piecing together what's happening through scattered notes and audio logs, it's worth diving into. This is one of those games that's more about the relationship between characters than just monster hunting. You play as a duo who deal with spirits, and the game constantly puts you in moral situations where your choices actually matter. Combat has a nice balance between physical and supernatural abilities, and the world is atmospheric without being too overwhelming. It's grounded, but still has that fantasy element running through it. If you're into story-driven experiences with solid mechanics and emotional weight, this one flies a bit under the radar but delivers in a big way. If you've ever wanted to feel like Batman, this game comes pretty close. The city's huge and beautifully detailed, and gliding around Gotham or cruising in the Batmobile never really gets old. The story picks up from previous Arkham games, so if you've played those, there's some nice payoff here. The combat is smooth and satisfying, and taking out enemies stealthily from the shadows still feels great. There are a lot of side missions too. Some are just okay, but others really lean into Batman's detective side, which is a nice change of pace. It's polished, atmospheric, and a solid close to the trilogy. This one's been generating buzz for good reason. It's based on Journey to the West, and you play as the Monkey King himself. The game blends Chinese mythology with flashy, Souls-like combat. The visuals are seriously impressive. Tons of detail, dynamic lighting, all that good stuff, but it's not just eye candy. The gameplay seems to be skill-focused, where timing and learning enemy patterns matter. It's one of those games where the world feels rich with lore, even if it doesn't explain everything outright. Definitely one to watch if you're into myth-inspired action games with depth. Control is weird in the best way. You're in this constantly shifting building called the Oldest House, working through all kinds of strange supernatural events. The combat mixes gunplay with telekinetic powers, and when it clicks, it feels really fluid. What really makes it stand out, though, is the world building. Everything from the cryptic story to the eerie architecture feels like it's hiding something. There are also tons of documents and videos you can find that flesh out the world in cool, creepy ways. It's not afraid to be strange, but that's part of what makes it so memorable. Cyberpunk had a rough launch, no doubt, but it's grown a lot since then. If you're playing it now, you're getting a way more polished experience. The story's set in a gritty, futuristic world where you're constantly making choices that actually affect how things play out. Night City is packed with detail, from neon-soaked streets to weird little side stories you stumble into. The gameplay gives you a lot of freedom too. You can go loud or stealthy, tech-heavy, or all brute force. It's not perfect, but if you're into sprawling RPGs with strong writing and atmosphere, there's a lot to like here.
Is grass green? Do birds fly? Do cats eat bats? Do rats shit gnats?
Mainframe's not your playground, Murphy. Come on. Evac announcement.
Days Gone is kind of underrated. It's an open-world zombie survival game, but what makes it interesting is the relationship between the main character, Deacon, and the people around him. You're not just mowing down zombies, you're also dealing with biker drama, broken relationships, and a world slowly falling apart. Riding your bike across Oregon feels great, and keeping it fueled up adds a layer of realism. The story builds gradually, and while it takes a bit to really pick up, by the end you're pretty invested. If you like post-apocalyptic worlds with a personal touch, this one's worth checking out.
Come on! Yeah, come on! Hurry, how am I doing? You're almost there. Maybe a quarter to go.
Dead Island 2 doesn't try to be deep or serious, and honestly that works in its favor. It's more about wild, over-the-top zombie slaying in sunny, chaotic LA. The real fun is in the combat. It's gory, yes, but it's also creative. You can use everything from electrified swords to makeshift flamethrowers, and the way zombies react to damage is strangely satisfying. The story is goofy and doesn't take itself too seriously, which fits the vibe. It's not the most groundbreaking zombie game out there, but if you just want to kick back and have fun smashing the undead, it totally delivers. This is one of those games people either vibe with or they don't, but it's definitely worth trying once. You play as a kind of futuristic delivery man, trekking across a hauntingly empty America while reconnecting isolated communities. It sounds weird, and it is, but there's something strangely peaceful about it. The story gets pretty wild with its sci-fi themes, but the core loop, navigating the terrain, balancing your load, building paths for others, is oddly meditative. It's not action-heavy, but if you're into slow-burn, thoughtful games with big ideas, this one's unlike anything else. This game plays more like an interactive movie, but the choices you make really matter. You follow 3 different android characters, each with their own storyline that eventually overlaps. It explores some heavy topics like identity, freedom, and morality, but it does it in a way that feels accessible. Visually, it still holds up really well, and the performances are solid across the board. What's cool is how much your decisions shape the outcome. Small choices early on can totally flip the ending. It's perfect if you like narrative-driven games that give you the reins.
No! I don't have a gun! You're lying! I know you have a gun! I'm telling you the truth, Daniel! I came here unarmed!
Dishonored 2 nails that feeling of freedom when it comes to how you approach missions. You can go stealthy, aggressive, or somewhere in between, and the powers you get really open up creative ways to move around and deal with enemies. The level design is top tier, especially places like the Clockwork Mansion. It feels like a puzzle you can tackle from multiple angles. The story continues from the first game, but works fine on its own too. If you enjoy games where your playstyle actually matters and where exploration is rewarded, this one's a standout here.
More Grand Guard soldiers. Lapdogs for the Duke.
Dying Light 2 mixes parkour with zombie survival, and it works surprisingly well. Running across rooftops, scaling buildings, and using the environment to your advantage gives the game a really unique flow. Combat can be intense, especially at night when things get way more dangerous. The city feels alive, not just from the infected, but from the factions and characters you interact with. Your choices influence the world, which adds a nice sense of consequence. It's a game that rewards both speed and strategy, and once you get into the rhythm of movement, it's hard to stop. Elden Ring takes everything from software's known for tough bosses, cryptic lore, rewarding combat, and drops it into a huge open world that's full of surprises. You're not funneled into any one path, which makes exploration feel organic. Sometimes you'll just stumble into a hidden cave or a massive dragon out of nowhere. The game doesn't hold your hand, but that's part of the appeal. It respects your curiosity and patience. Combat is challenging but fair, and the world is layered with mysteries. If you're into games that make you work for every victory, this one is an experience you'll remember. Evil West kind of feels like an old-school action game wrapped in a cool, Wild West meets monsters aesthetic. You play as a vampire hunter, and the combat leans more toward fast-paced brawling than gunplay, which is a nice change. There's a real weight to every punch, combo, and special move, and it's satisfying to just smash through hordes of enemies. It doesn't try to be overly complex, and that's part of its charm. It's the kind of game you pick up when you want something straightforward, a bit goofy, and just plain fun to play through. Far Cry Primal is a bit of a curveball in the series. Instead of guns and cars, you're working with spears, bows, and saber-toothed tigers. It's set in the Stone Age, and the setting actually works really well. You're surviving in a wild, untamed world where nature is constantly out to get you. One of the coolest mechanics is taming animals. They'll fight alongside you, track enemies, or just chill out while you explore. The story's simple but effective, and the atmosphere is surprisingly immersive. If you're into survival elements and a break from modern settings, this is worth a go. Rebirth is part 2 of the Final Fantasy VII Remake project, and it really opens things up compared to the first part. The world's bigger, there's more freedom to explore, and the combat's been tweaked to feel even smoother. What's nice is how it mixes real-time action with tactical elements so you can play it your way. If you played the original FF7, there's a lot here that plays with your expectations, which makes it super interesting. The characters are well written, the visuals are gorgeous, and there's a good balance of story and side content to dig into.
Do that again.
Ghost of Tsushima is one of those games where the world pulls you in instantly. You play as Jin Sakai, a samurai defending his homeland during the Mongol invasion, and the game captures that feeling of honor versus necessity really well. The sword combat is slick and stylish, but stealth is also an option if you prefer the quiet approach. The island itself is absolutely stunning. Fields of flowers, mountain paths, and temples hidden in the mist. It's not just about combat either. Exploring the world at your own pace and taking in the atmosphere is a big part of the appeal. This reboot took a big swing by changing the tone and style of the original series, and it paid off. Instead of the chaotic, rage-fueled Kratos we knew before, we get a more grounded version of him as a father trying to guide his son through a dangerous world. The combat still hits hard, but it's more focused, with the Leviathan axe becoming an iconic weapon on its own. What really stands out, though, is the relationship between Kratos and Atreus. It evolves naturally and adds real emotional weight. It's not just about gods and monsters, it's about learning to be better. Gris is one of those short but beautiful experiences that sticks with you. It's a side-scrolling platformer, but it's not really about tricky jumps or puzzles. It's more of a journey through emotion and healing. The art style is gorgeous, almost like a watercolor painting in motion, and the music ties everything together perfectly. There's no dialogue, but the story comes through in the visuals and movement. It's calming, sad, and hopeful all at once. If you're looking for something peaceful and artistic, Grease is the kind of game you can finish in one sitting but think about for days. Hellblade is a powerful game that stands out for how it deals with mental health. You play as Senua, a warrior on a journey through a Norse-inspired underworld, all while battling her own psychosis. The game uses sound in an intense way. Wearing headphones is a must, so you can hear the voices in her head and feel her struggle. The combat is straightforward but impactful, and the visuals are surprisingly strong for such a small team. It's a focused, emotional game that doesn't overstay its welcome. More than anything, it's about experiencing Senua's story from the inside out.
Go.
Whether you're a hardcore Harry Potter fan or just into fantasy RPGs, Hogwarts Legacy delivers a solid open-world experience. You play as a student at Hogwarts in the 1800s, and the coolest part is how much freedom you get to explore the castle, surrounding areas, and magical beasts. The story isn't groundbreaking, but it works well enough to keep things moving, and the spellcasting combat feels satisfying once you unlock a few key abilities. It's more about the world than anything else. Getting lost in classes, flying your broom, and customizing your character really sells the fantasy.
Mind yourself!
Expelliarmus!
Oh, no! You'll pay for that!
Expulso.
Did I hurt you?
Horizon Zero Dawn sets itself apart with its unique setting. A post-apocalyptic world filled with robotic animals and tribal societies trying to rebuild. You play as Aloy, an outcast turned hero, and her journey of uncovering the past is as interesting as the futuristic world itself. The gameplay blends ranged combat with stealth and strategy, especially when it comes to taking down giant mechanical creatures. There's a real sense of discovery whether you're exploring the map or digging into the story's layers. It's a game that gets better the more time you spend with it, especially once the story hooks you. Indiana Jones and This Great Circle brings back that classic adventure vibe, but with a fresh, modern feel. You're stepping into Indy's shoes, solving ancient mysteries, punching Nazis, and navigating through some pretty cool historical set pieces. It's part action, part puzzle solving, and part exploration, which keeps things nicely balanced. The game plays it smart by not going overboard. It leans into what makes Indy fun: clever quips, a sense of danger, and that old-school treasure hunting charm. If you're into cinematic storytelling and lighthearted adventure with some brainy moments, this one's worth checking out. Second Son is one of those open-world games that lets you feel like a superhero from the start. You play as Delson Rowe, a guy who absorbs powers from other conduits, and that mechanic alone keeps the gameplay fresh. Whether you're flying through the city or blasting neon across rooftops, movement and combat are super satisfying. What's cool is the morality system. You can lean into being a hero or go full rogue, and it actually affects the story and how people react to you. It's not the deepest narrative ever, but it's a fun, fast-paced ride with some style to spare. Kinda feels like a throwback in the best way. It's got the structure of a classic action-adventure game with platforming, light puzzles, and boss fights, all wrapped in a gorgeous Pixar-like art style. The story is emotional, but not overdone. You play as a spirit guide helping souls find peace, and there's a nice balance between charm and sadness. Combat is simple at first, but there's enough depth with upgrades and timing to keep it interesting. It's not a massive open-world game, and that's actually refreshing. It knows what it wants to do and does it really well. Life is Strange is more of a story experience than a traditional game, but that's part of what makes it special. You play as Max, a teen who discovers she can rewind time, which leads to some heavy choices and emotional moments. The setting, small-town Oregon with a hint of mystery, feels grounded and real, and the characters are surprisingly fleshed out. It's all about relationships, decisions, and the butterfly effect. And while the dialogue can be a little cheesy at times, the story hits hard in places. If you're into narrative-driven games, this one leaves a mark.
Nathan Prescott is taking me down. You're right, he won't. Mark Jefferson killed you. And others. Jefferson, the art teacher? That's bullshit! Nathan is the fucking serial killer!
Little Nightmares is eerie, unsettling, and strangely beautiful. You play as a tiny character named Six, navigating through a twisted world full of grotesque, oversized enemies. There's barely any dialogue, but the game tells its story through the environment and creepy visuals. It's part puzzle platformer, part horror, but it's not about jump scares. It's more about atmosphere and the feeling of being small and vulnerable. It's also pretty short, which works in its favor. You'll finish it in a few hours, but the imagery will stick with you a lot longer than that. Mad Max kind of flew under the radar, but it's actually a solid open-world action game, especially if you like a gritty post-apocalyptic vibe. Driving is a big part of the experience, and your car, the magnum opus, feels like a character in itself. You're upgrading it, tweaking it, and using it in wild desert battles that feel chaotic in a good way. The melee combat is very Arkham style, with heavy punches and timed counters, and it fits well with the world's brutal tone. The story's not super deep, but the atmosphere and world building really pull you in. If you've played the first Spider-Man game or Miles Morales, this one builds on everything and makes it even better. You get to switch between Peter and Miles, which keeps combat and exploration fresh. The web swinging still feels amazing, and now with the upgraded traversal options, moving through New York is more fluid than ever. The story leans into the emotional struggles of both characters, while also giving you big set pieces and comic book style drama. It's a fun, well-paced game with some great boss fights, and it just feels good to play, whether you're fighting crime or just zipping around the skyline.
You okay? Yeah, but I think we found him! Marco!
This one's a bit different from the usual Metal Gear entries. It leans heavily into open-world stealth, giving you tons of freedom to approach missions your way. Whether you're sneaking in at night, going loud with heavy weapons, or even airlifting goats, yep, that's a thing, there's always some weird twist around the corner. The story is classic Kojima, twisty, layered, and sometimes confusing, but it has its moments. What really shines is the gameplay loop. Scouting a base, planning your infiltration, and watching your plan, hopefully, come together. It's dense, but worth digging into if you like tactical gameplay. Shadow of War improves a lot on what made Shadow of Mordor fun, especially the Nemesis system, where orcs you fight remember you, come back stronger, and sometimes even turn against you. It gives the world a weirdly personal feel, like your own mini-drama playing out inside a big fantasy war. Combat is fluid and satisfying, especially once you unlock the cooler abilities. Story-wise, it plays fast and loose with Tolkien lore, but the cinematic vibe and over-the-top battles are entertaining. It's all about building your army, conquering fortresses, and becoming a legendary force in Mordor. Mirror's Edge is a game about movement more than anything else. You play as Faith, a runner navigating rooftops in a futuristic city, and the first-person parkour is what makes it stand out. The clean, minimalist aesthetic really pops, and once you get into the rhythm of wall running, jumping, and sliding, it's a super satisfying experience. There's some combat, but it's not the highlight. This one's more about flow and freedom. The story's a bit thin, but the vibe is cool and different. It's a unique take on action games that focuses more on agility than brute force. The Forgotten Sands sits between the classic Sands of Time trilogy and the 2008 reboot, and it kind of bridges the gap stylistically. It brings back the time rewind mechanic and fluid platforming that fans love, running on walls, leaping over traps, and solving environmental puzzles. Combat-wise, it throws a lot of enemies at you, and you get some elemental powers to mix things up, but the real joy is still in the movement. It's not the flashiest or most polished game out there, but it scratches that nostalgic itch for some good old-school action-adventure gameplay. Red Dead Redemption 2 is a slow burn, but in the best way. It's less about constant action and more about soaking in the world. Watching sunsets, getting caught in snowstorms, or riding for hours just to see what's over the next hill. You play as Arthur Morgan, a complex character stuck between loyalty and change, and the story handles that arc with a lot of care. The game is packed with detail, from random encounters to how your horse behaves. It asks you to take your time, and if you're patient with it, it offers a deeply rewarding and emotional experience. The remake of Resident Evil 4 takes everything that made the original a classic and updates it with modern polish. It keeps the over-the-shoulder shooting, tense pacing, and campy charm, but adds smoother controls, tighter level design, and just enough tweaks to keep it fresh, even for longtime fans. Leon still throws cheesy one-liners, and the action-horror balance is just right. Whether it's the creepy village or the castle full of weird cultists, every area feels memorable. It's a great mix of nostalgia and modernization, perfect for newcomers or those looking to relive a favorite in a new light. Rise of the Tomb Raider is Lara Croft in her prime. Smart, resourceful, and determined. It dials up the survival aspects compared to the 2013 reboot, letting you craft gear, explore optional tombs, and take on some pretty solid puzzles. The game world is semi-open, giving you space to explore without overwhelming you. Combat feels snappy, and stealth is genuinely satisfying when you pull it off. The story centers around an ancient mystery, and while it's a bit by the numbers, it's got enough momentum to keep you hooked. A solid modern adventure game that balances action and exploration really well. Sifu is all about martial arts mastery, and it doesn't hold your hand. The combat is tight, fast, and brutal. Think hand-to-hand fights with a rhythm game level of timing. The unique mechanic is aging. Every time you die, you get older, gaining more power but losing health. It creates this pressure to learn and adapt quickly. The environments are stylish and the fights feel choreographed without losing that raw, scrappy edge. It can be tough, no doubt, but when it clicks, it's super satisfying. If you've ever wanted to feel like you're in a slick kung fu movie, this one delivers.
Another jump here. I can make it.
Silent Hill 2 is one of the defining games in the horror genre for a reason. It doesn't just rely on jump scares. It's atmospheric, psychological, and downright disturbing. You play as James Sunderland, who's searching for his wife in the creepy, fog-filled town of Silent Hill, and the more you explore, the more you uncover twisted realities and personal horrors. The monsters are more symbolic than literal, representing inner trauma and guilt. It's slow-paced, but every moment feels important. If you're into psychological horror that sticks with you long after you're done playing, this is a must. Sleeping Dogs is one of those under-the-radar gems that combines a solid open-world design with a fantastic martial arts combat system. You play as Wei Shen, an undercover cop working his way through the Hong Kong criminal underworld. The story has plenty of twists, but what really sets this apart is the hand-to-hand combat, which is brutal and satisfying. You're punching, kicking, and throwing people around in a way that feels very cinematic. It's got some driving, shooting, and side missions too, but the real fun is in the fighting. It's one of those games that feels like it flies under the radar, but is well worth checking out. Spec Ops: The Line is a game that's more about telling a story than providing traditional military action. You play as Captain Martin Walker, sent to Dubai to investigate a missing unit, only to find the city in chaos. The combat is decent, but the real draw is how the story plays out. It's a gritty, dark look at the horrors of war and the psychological toll it takes. The choices you make hit hard, and the game doesn't pull any punches when it comes to exploring tough moral questions. It's not a typical shooter, and that's exactly why it's worth playing. Stray is one of those games that sneaks up on you with its charm. You play as a stray cat in a cyberpunk city trying to find your way back to your family. It's got platforming, puzzle solving, and a bit of combat, but what makes it stand out is the world. The city feels alive, and you get to see it from the unique perspective of a cat, which makes for some fun moments, like knocking things off ledges just because you can. It's not a long game, but it's a sweet, atmospheric adventure that makes you feel connected to the world and your cat character. Sunset Overdrive is pure, over-the-top fun. Set in a colorful, chaotic city that's been taken over by mutants, you play as a character with no real responsibility other than to cause chaos and save the world. If you want to. The gameplay is all about fast movement, whether you're grinding on rails, wall running, or bouncing around the environment. The combat is equally as wild with a variety of quirky weapons, and the humor is spot on. It's not a deep or serious game, but if you're looking for something fast-paced and fun with a lot of personality, this is it.
You might have missed some parts back there.
The Evil Within 2 takes everything that made the first game creepy and turns it up a notch, with more open-world segments and a greater focus on survival horror. You play as Sebastian Castellanos, a detective trying to rescue his daughter from a twisted, nightmarish world. The game mixes stealth, combat, and exploration, and it's definitely one that keeps you on edge. The monsters are grotesque, and the environments are downright unsettling, making for a tense atmosphere throughout. There's a lot more narrative depth here compared to the first game, and while it's still creepy, it's also a lot of fun to experience. The Last of Us Part 1 is one of the most iconic action-adventure games ever made. The world is ravaged by a fungal infection, and you play as Joel, trying to survive while escorting Ellie, a young girl who might hold the key to a cure. It's all about the relationship between these two characters, and the story's emotional weight hits hard. The gameplay blends stealth, gunplay, and resource management, and the world building is some of the best in any game. The remastered version adds better visuals and smoother gameplay, making it the definitive way to experience the journey if you haven't already. The Witcher 3 is a game that almost feels like an entire world in itself. You play as Geralt of Rivia, a monster hunter looking for his adopted daughter, but the journey is filled with unexpected twists, moral dilemmas, and side quests that could easily be their own stories. The world of The Witcher is incredibly rich, with politics, folklore, and characters that feel truly alive. Combat is tactical, mixing swordplay with magic, and the world building and storytelling are just top-notch. Whether you're hunting monsters, playing Gwent, or just exploring the vast open world, There's always something to do, making it one of the best RPGs out there. Titanfall 2 is an underrated gem, blending fast-paced parkour with giant mechs in an unforgettable way. You play as Jack Cooper, a soldier who bonds with his Titan, BT, to take on a corrupt military organization. The gameplay is fluid, whether you're running across walls, battling enemy mechs, or using a variety of futuristic weapons. The single-player campaign is surprisingly heartfelt, and the bond between Jack and BT gives the story emotional weight. It's a thrilling ride, but also one that allows for a surprising amount of depth in the relationship between the human and machine characters. The multiplayer is great too, but the campaign is what really makes this stand out. Uncharted 4 is the final chapter in Nathan Drake's adventure-filled life, and it wraps up his story beautifully. The game blends treasure hunting, breathtaking visuals, and great character moments, all while offering an incredible adventure. The platforming and gunplay are as satisfying as ever, and the game does a great job of mixing action sequences with moments of calm, allowing the story to shine. Nathan's personal journey with his family, particularly his brother Sam, gives the game an emotional core that makes it feel more grounded. If you've followed Nathan Drake's journey so far, this is a perfect end to his story.
Yeah, probably. Oh, crap!
And there you have it, folks. 50 single-player games you've got to try at least once. Whether you've played some of these or they're new to you, each one brings something unique to the table. If you enjoyed the list, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell so you never miss out on more gaming content. Got a favorite game on the list or one you think should have made the cut? Drop it in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. See you next time. Peace.